We regularly see examples of cars that have been stolen. Yeah, it just seems like there's not much we can do about it. If you're lucky, you'll end up with a bare shell that gets found. There are people out there that are utter scumbags, and these cars are worth more than cars to us, aren't they, right? It does highlight how useless the police are. But what makes the case of this even worse, as if it could get even worse, is the fact that as car enthusiasts, we all fear the possibility that one day our pride and joy could get stolen by some scumbag. And thanks to social media, we regularly see examples of cars that have been stolen and posts from owners just pleading for everyone to keep their eye out, etc, etc. And it just seems like with the law's unwillingness to even bother investigating these crimes, and certainly not willing to punish such crimes appropriately when the criminals do get caught, yeah, it just seems like there's not much we can do about it apart from just hope that it doesn't happen to us. And there's one case in particular, very recently, of a Sierra Sapphire Cosworth that went missing, where the whole situation is made a whole lot worse by a heartbreaking twist to the story. If you're a regular viewer of my content, please do click the like button now, because it's a huge help to me and my channel. Alternatively, if you're new to the channel, click subscribe now and welcome. I'm Marcus Hayes, and today we're going to be talking about car theft. So I'm sure loads of you guys have seen the posts flying around social media lately about the Nouveau Red Sapphire Sierra Cosworth that has gone missing. The colour is very similar to magenta, but apparently it is Nouveau Red. And yeah, it's just really heartbreaking to hear these stories of people's pride and joys being stolen. I honestly don't know what I would do if, you know, one of my cars got stolen. It's a nightmare that I really hope that I never have to live. And, you know, I really feel for the owner of this Sapphire Cosworth, as well as, you know, anyone else who's had their pride and joy stolen. And because of social media, as I say, we get to see examples of this happening, you know, too often. One such page that posts these stolen cars is the Stolen Old School Fords page on Facebook. And, you know, social media can sometimes help get these cars back. Unfortunately, there is, it seems, very little chance of you getting your car back if it's been stolen, especially if it's a classic Ford or something, you know, desirable for its parts or whatever. You've got a very slim chance of getting the car back. That's the reality. And, you know, the social media posts and stuff, if there's enough attention made about a car that's gone stolen, if you make it too hot to handle, as they always say, then there's a slightly bigger chance of you getting the car back. But it is still, you know, a very small chance. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of these cars, they're stolen to order, or they're stolen and they're stripped for parts. And yeah, if you're lucky, you'll end up with a bare shell that gets found a few days later, or a burnt out shell that gets found a few days later. Unfortunately, we live in a society where, you know, even people that aren't scummy enough to go and steal something themselves, you know, there's still plenty of people out there that would be willing, unfortunately, to have the opportunity to buy parts that they can't necessarily afford, you could say, at a discounted rate. You know, they're quite happy to ignore the fact that they might be stolen. So yeah, it means that stolen cars, you know, stolen classic cars, these desirable cars like your RS Fords and stuff, you know, there is a big market, a big black market in these cars. And, you know, it just means that it's never going to stop, unfortunately. And look, with regards to the Stolen Old School Fords Facebook page, I mean, this Nouveau Red Sierra Sapphire has been posted on there, but, you know, we haven't got to look back far before we see other examples of other Sapphire Cosworths being stolen that have been posted on this page. There's one that I can see here from the beginning of last month, the 3rd of November. You know, this time a Moonstone Blue Sapphire Cosworth that has been stolen. Don't know whether this car got recovered. I mean, I hope so, but as I say, it is, you know, highly unlikely. And, you know, a lot of people say, oh, why don't you put a tracker on it? Why don't it have an immobiliser? Why doesn't it have this? Why doesn't it have that? And look, yes, you should make your car harder to steal and easier to track if it does go missing. But ultimately, these thieves, they're all only one step behind, if that, the technology that's out there for us to prevent our cars being stolen. All this technology and all this security isn't going to change the fact that we live in a society where people are, you know, there are people out there that are utter scumbags, and then there are other people out there, as I say, who might not necessarily be thieves, but they fuel this black market by being willing to buy these stolen parts and stolen cars. But yeah, that was on the 3rd of November, a silver one went missing. And yeah, this page, you know, is literally all about stolen old school Fords, right? And yeah, there's just too much of it going on. But onto this Nouveau Red Sierra Sapphire, I've got a comment here from a guy called Neil Armstrong, who I think is an admin to that stolen old school Fords page. He wrote a comment detailing the spec. So for you guys that haven't heard about this car that went missing, it's absolutely beautiful. Like, it's heartbreaking that this thing's gone missing, but it's a Nouveau Red Sapphire Cosworth 4x4. The reg number is K93WKE. It was stolen at 12:32 a.m. on Friday the 6th of December from a location in Abbotsleigh in Cambridgeshire. The car is immaculate, has Moret quad headlights, 4x4 bonnet vents, has the 17-inch diamond cut RS7 alloys. The brake calipers have been painted red. Car's been lowered. It has a full Raven leather interior. The engine bay, really pretty engine bay. It's got a strut brace, red Roos Motorsport hoses, the older style Kent cams, pulleys in red, plus alloy coolant header tank and oil separator tank. So yeah, loads of really cool red bits in the engine bay and alloy bits and stuff. There were 2 probable sightings of the car around 2 a.m, so you know, an hour and a half after it was stolen, in the area of the A1 at Sandy and through Beeston. I'm guessing they're like villages or whatever towns in that area. And then it was seen coming out of a housing estate heading on the A603 towards Bedford at speed. So, you know, they've obviously stolen the car and then they've been ragging it about afterwards. Yeah, absolute nightmare for the owner and a real shame. Now, this car is obviously worth a lot of money, but you know what? It's not about the money. These cars are worth more than cars to us, aren't they, right? I mean, for instance, my Mark 1 Escort, my favourite car, if it went missing, all right, you know, you're never going to get all the money back that you've put into a car like that. I don't even know what the number is. I wouldn't like to work it out. You know, it has cost me more than it's worth, you know, by far. And, you know, even if you was to get every penny of that money back, you're not going to get the time and effort and dedication that has been put into the car over years and years and years and years. You know, these cars literally are priceless. They're more than a car. They're more than any amount of money. So, you know, I really feel for this guy who owns this Cosworth. I'm not sure whether he's built it and he's had to go through the stage and of throwing time and money at it to make it into such a beautiful car, or, you know, whether he's bought it already built. It doesn't matter. You know, it's clearly worth a lot of money, and I'm sure it's worth more than any amount of money to the owner. But what makes the case of this Nouveau Red Sierra Sapphire being stolen even worse, as if it could get even worse, is the fact that the thieves have actually posted a video of them sort of showing the car and boasting about what they've got and how much it might be worth, etc, etc, you know, revving the engine and stuff, you know, on this film. And I just can't imagine how that would make the owner feel. Like, if, you know, as I say, if my Mark 1 Escort got stolen, you know, it is what it is. I would somewhat accept that I'm never getting the car back and just hope that I get a sizable payment from the insurance, and you know, you'd be just trying to forget about it, wouldn't you? Imagine then I see a video of the scumbags who had stolen it, you know, getting their grubby hands on it, and, you know, seeing the car in an unclean state, as you're about to see this Sierra is in, and yeah, revving the engine and stuff and boasting about how much money they're going to make out of it. It's just going to make it even worse, isn't it? It really is rubbing the salt into the wounds of, you know, having your pride and joy stolen. And I think this kind of thing kind of highlights as well how scummy these kind of people are, like how, you know, how much they don't care. They obviously don't care that this car is someone's pride and joy. All they care about is the money that they're potentially going to make out of it. And I think it also highlights how unscared they are of getting caught. How, you know, they know that there's a very small chance of them getting caught, and they know that there's a very small chance of the police even bothering to investigate it. And, you know, even if they do get caught, they probably know that they're going to be getting very little, if any, jail time. And yeah, it's just a real shame. So look, I'm going to play the video. It's not a nice thing to watch. I've watched it a couple of times already, and this is probably going to be the last time that I watch it. I just hope that somehow, some way, this video helps them find where the car is or who's stolen it, even though that is probably quite doubtful. Alright, so there it is, looking in a bit of a state. You can just make out that, you know, it's all dusty. They're rubbing away the dust to reveal the 4x4 badge, and then, you know, saying go round to the back, go round to the back, to point at the Sierra Cosworth badge, of course. Yeah, utter scumbags. Yeah, they're saying they're 85 miles from new, 85 miles from new, because this car apparently was on around 99,000 at its last MOT. A lot of people have been doing like a car search on the car, and it shows the last mileage for the last MOT. So it's obviously just gone over the 100,000 miles. So it's obviously sitting on 85 miles now. I'm guessing that's why they're saying, you know, 85 miles from new, 85 miles from new. Utter idiots, you know. They're either just mocking the situation, or they're just, you know, a bit thick, thinking that it's 85 miles from new when it's, you know, 100,085 miles. But anyway, that's, you know, then it goes around to the front, and yeah, they sort of say, oh, it's on the key, it's on the key, because apparently this car, where it was stored in a lockup, apparently they ransacked the place, found the safe where the keys for all the cars in that place were kept. And yeah, they've got the keys to the car. Although I have heard that it's not hard to get hold of a key that can basically, you know, unlock any car door and turn the ignition on any of these old cars. So, but yeah, I did hear that these thieves stole the keys from the place, as I say, and yeah, just revving the nuts out of it, you know, disrespectfully, like utter twats, like the way they're revving it as well, like you know, like idiots. Like it's like they've never revved a high performance car before, you know, like utter morons, you know, because they're not the kind of people that would acquire a car like this and respect it. You know, they just go out and steal someone else's. Like, it just shows the kind of personality these people have got, you know, utter morons. Yeah, then the idiot saying, oh, these wheels are £5,000 alone, you know, Sierra Cosworth wheels. Well, they're not Sierra Cosworth wheels, and I don't think they're worth £5,000 either. Yeah, just, you know, sort of blinded by money, utter morons, you know. You know, what kind of moron are you? Like, if you've got nothing about you at all, no desire at all apart from money, you know, money that you're stealing from someone else, like, you know, taking someone else's hard graft to put it in your pocket, like, you know, I want £5,000 for these wheels, like, yeah, like, you know, so even if you get £5,000 for them wheels, like, you're still an utter moron, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I wouldn't want to be this guy if you gave me £500,000, do you know what I mean? Like, like, morons. Oh, pop the bonnet, like. And you see the reg there, so it clearly is the car. Like, you know, they're not trying to hide the reg or anything, you know. Again, covered in dust, so disrespectful. And there it is, beautiful Cosy setup, all the red bits, and yeah, listen to the noises they're making, all excited, and then giving the symbol like this again, money. So yeah, literally all they care about in the world is money. Like, what a sad existence, you know, but also what a sad time we live in where people like this are able to get away with this sort of thing. Like, it makes me sick. Like, they are utter scumbags, and as I say, like, I'd hate to be that kind of person, you know. I'd rather be, you know, the poor bloke that's just had his car stolen than be the utter moron that thinks it's okay to steal it, you know. Thank God, like, I'm not an utter moron like that, a scumbag, like degenerate, wrong, and like waste of oxygen. Like, thank God I'm not, a degenerate like that. But again, thank God it's not me that's had my pride and joy stolen. And yeah, I really, really feel for the owner. It's disgusting, but it's not the first time we've seen something like this, and it won't be the last. Unfortunately, that's not the first car they've stolen, and it probably won't be the last, unfortunately. And yeah, it does highlight how useless the police are when it comes to investigating crimes like this. And do you know what? If they wanted to, they do have the resources to find where this car is, and recover it. If it was a priority, they would be able to. I remember about 18 months ago when my dad actually went missing. My dad's got Alzheimer's. Thankfully, it's sort of progressing slowly, but when he's not in a familiar situation, he's prone to like forget where he was. And at this point, he was still driving. We've took the car off him now and stuff. So it is what it is. But he went missing, and we sort of rung the police and stuff, like reported him missing, etc., etc. And eventually, we got the information out of them that through the cameras, they were able to tell that his reg had been in the area where he used to live. So he's obviously, got disorientated, he's losing his memory or whatever, and he's driving around the area where we used to live. So that's where he'd gone. And, I got the phone number from a police officer that said he was dealing with it, and he said, it was okay to phone him, and he was going to get in touch with me if my dad's number plate had pinged in that area again. And, I was grateful for the help, like, it was fine. But then, I weren't getting a call back every sort of hour that, that the police officer said that I would. And I sort of started ringing this copper on the number he gave me, and then he was sort of ignoring me, and I totally understand they've got other things to deal with and stuff, but eventually a police officer did end up pulling my dad over, because obviously their system must just flag up when a number plate goes past them that has been identified as a missing person, etc., etc. So, the resources are in place for coppers to sort of find out where a car is or where a car has been. But ultimately, they're not bothered about our pride and joys going missing, right? That's not top of their sort of agenda. And, while we're on the subject of agendas, on the other side of the coin, if you happen to say something online that goes against the agenda of the government, then, you're prone to have your door kicked in, and, you could get sent to prison for 2 years for a Facebook post. But when it comes to hard-working people having their cars stolen, the police just aren't interested. They're not willing to put those resources into that sort of thing. But, in my opinion, it's not that it's impossible to solve these crimes. These crimes are solvable. It's just that the police choose, or they're told to put their resources into things that are deemed more important. But again, when you hear certain stories and certain things that happen to certain criminals, you sort of think that maybe these resources are being put to solve crimes that aren't really crimes. They're just loud people speaking out against the government, etc., etc. So it's a sad state of affairs, but it is what it is. The other thing that is definitely apparent is that certain communities that are sort of willing to stand with each other against law enforcement, and I'm talking about travellers for one. One thing you can sort of rate about the travellers is that they do stick together and they're willing to stick up for each other. That's great. And there's other communities as well that people are saying that this car could be potentially on a traveller site. A lot of people have been posting like aerial footage, maybe Google Maps images or whatever, where they've sort of identified that this is a traveller site by the video that I've just showed you. And travellers are one of those communities where the police are just scared to deal with them. The fact is that even if they knew for sure that this car was in a traveller site, then the police would just be scared to go in. In fact, I saw an article earlier where it literally says like this particular traveller site is a no-go area, where literally their instructions are to not bother going on to the traveller site, because the travellers like to stick up for each other, and they're likely going to put up some violent defence, if you like, if the police were to step foot onto the traveller site. Now, I must stress, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter what community you come from. You know, there are good and bad people in every community, right? Not all travellers are bad. I'm sure the majority of them are not bad, but it just, you know, it seems like the travellers are one of these communities that the police are just even more unwilling to tackle. So when cars get stolen by communities that are sort of deemed communities that do stick up for each other, like the traveller community, then yeah, the police are just more unwilling to deal with these crimes. So, you know, they just feel like they've got a free-for-all, don't they? Now, as I've already mentioned in this video, there is kind of nothing you can really do like in these situations, which is heartbreaking, but it's a fact. There's almost 100% chance that the car will not get recovered, and even if it does, it'll only be after it's been stripped for all its valuable parts and potentially torched. And as we've already said, even if the police knew where the car was, chances are that they wouldn't bother putting the resources into going to recover it either. They'll just give you a crime number, tell you to get in touch with your insurance, and yeah, wipe their hands of the situation. So, short of organising a small army to go and get the car back yourself, if you knew where it was, there's not much you can do. And to be honest, I wouldn't advise anybody do anything like that. Even though it would make a great story, you know, if someone stole your car and you got a load of lads together and went and stole it back and, you know, dealt with whatever you needed to in that situation, it's just not worth putting yourself and your friends in potential harm for a car, as much as they are more than just cars to us enthusiasts. You know, if something, heaven forbid, were to happen, you know, you or one of your friends got seriously hurt or even died in any altercation that you got into to recover the car, you know, your car's not worth someone's life. So yeah, there is basically not much you can do. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about what I've learned about certain security measures, because I don't want this video to be a way where people learn how certain security measures are potentially beatable. But from my research, it seems like trackers are potentially useless in cars. Car alarms and immobilizers are pretty much always beatable, you know, on cars. And, you know, your door locks and stuff are just, you know, easily beatable, aren't they? You know, without any sort of fancy technology that people might use for some of the other more high-tech security measures that are on cars. You unfortunately hear a lot of stories where people have got their cars stored at home, where people will just knock on the door and threaten to hurt your family unless you hand over the keys. So if the car's close to you, you're at risk. If the car's far away from you, then you can't see or hear if it is trying to be stolen. But having said that, I'm not going to say that any of these security measures are not worthwhile, but I think your best bet is to just make the car as hard to steal as possible. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about the measures that I've got on my cars, you know, but it's all about having multiple layers of security, right? You know, yes, have your alarms, have your immobilizers, have your trackers, like, you know, even though they are beatable, but also have some security measures that are more visible, right? One thing that I've always said to people is, you know, if your car's stolen to order, if it's going to get stolen by utter professionals, then there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. But what you don't want is your car to be stolen by some opportunist morons. And that's where your more visible, like, industrial deterrents come in, you know, your steering locks, your wheel clamps, etc., etc. You know, parking another car in front of your garage door, for instance, you know, security bollards, things like that. So that even if they were to steal your car, and yes, it's a fact, if they want it hard enough, they're going to take it, at least make it hard for them. At least make it so that it takes them ages to do it and it makes a lot of racket. That's certainly my approach to security with my cars, you know, as well as all the sort of stealthy, hidden things that you can do to protect your car. Just make it hard for them to steal it as well, you know, with visible sort of more industrial measures. And ultimately, just insure your cars fully, you know. Don't fall into the trap of not insuring your modifications, etc., etc., lying about the amount of miles you do, etc., etc., just to get a cheaper premium. Just pay your insurance so that if the worst were to happen, you'll at least get as much money from the insurance company as possible, and there'll be less chance of them trying to wriggle out of a claim, which is another issue when it comes to car theft. On top of that, one thing that I try and do is I try and live a life where I accept that Cars aren't the most important thing in my life. Yes, it would still be devastating if one of my cars got stolen, but on a daily basis, I try and focus on things that are more important than my car. You know, my health, my family, my freedom, as much of it as I have got. And, you know, the beautiful world we live in, right? You know, although it's really easy to sort of fall into the trap where we think that all these material goods are, you know, the be all and end all, they're not. There is more important things to life, and, you know, there's a lot worse things that can happen to you in life than have your car stolen. Although I understand that having your pride and joy stolen, you know, is a really bad, really big negative thing to happen to you as a car enthusiast. So look, with regards to this stolen Sierra Sapphire, you know, I really do hope that the owner, even though it's highly unlikely, does manage to get the car back in one piece. You know, you never know, right? I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And if any of you guys have got any information about that Sierra Sapphire Cosworth, what I've seen online is that you should contact either Lisa Chalfont or Sean Rainford, and I'll search for their Facebook profiles and leave links in the description. You know, if any of you guys have got any information, then yeah, get in touch with them, and yeah, fingers crossed this will be one of the very few incidents like this that do have a happy ending. Other than that, that is the end of this very sad MH News video. I am working on a video currently where I'm trying to make progress on Heidi, my hearing aid beige model Mark II Escort, but we've had a bit of a storm here in England the last few days, so progress has been slow. But the previous video where I talked about this new up-and-coming Mark I Escort that's going to be released, which is actually being licensed by Ford apparently, yeah, that news video kind of done well. So I thought, you know, maybe I can just make these kind of videos in between the other types of videos just to keep the content more regular and more varied, and yeah, just try as I do to try and make this channel viable. If you've got any ideas for anything that you think I should cover on these news style videos, then yeah, drop me an email. My email address will be in the description as usual. But other than that, if you thought this video was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, feel free to give it a thumbs down. Check the links in the description to follow me on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. I'll leave a link to my website and the Petrolhead Style website down there as usual. Huge thanks as always to my patrons for your ongoing support. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.